Alrighty, hello every folks, and good morning! Welcome to another edition of Know Your Unit. Today we talk about the 5 royal classes, as I like to call them here. Technically, one of them is not even remotely royal, but hey, whatever, it's close enough. So, we've got the Dark Priest, the Princess, the Priest, as well as the Lord and Ranger. Now, that being said, between all of these classes, you may notice they're not exactly built equally, and these are effectively going to be the main unique classes of the main three characters here. So, we're going to go ahead and start off with Kashua, who comes in with 3 of them, because I guess Lady just really likes accessorizing, and let's go ahead and get into it here. So we're going to start off with the Dark Priest here. This is temporarily back on the Switch because I couldn't be bothered to go set her up as a Dark Priest on my main file on account of those Dark Priest marks being a bit of a crapshoot as far as when you end up getting them. This is essentially a challenge condition that you get on certain maps and a rarer drop that you see every now and then. It's just generally something you'll either wind up with a handful of, or very few of, or just none of. Anyway, so let's get into it here. Skills-wise, we've got hammers, cudgels, books, just kind of whatever you'd prefer. In most cases, I would probably just stick with hammers for an offhand weapon, but you do you. This is primarily an offensive spellcaster. However, they're actually one of the better use cases for something like books because their main thing is to try and get close, meaning that they might actually be a good way to take advantage of some of those book-type situations. So, for example, let's say we switched them over to books. We got them their finishers. We went ahead and replaced their meditate with something like book finishers here. We replaced their engulf with something like cudgels. This is essentially, or not cudgels, but hammers. Now, she doesn't have her hammers ranked up, but this could potentially give them a nice little suite of finishers to remain offensive while effectively attacking with their auto skills. So this is a unique class in terms of, like I said, being a short-range spellcaster for all intents and purposes. You can make them a long-range kind of like mix between a lich and a priest of all things. But when it comes to this class, it's better served, well, it's actually ideally served with something like the Stinky set here, because their main kind of claims to fame here are the skills Bloody Gag and Iron Maiden. So Iron Maiden inflicts curse and poison, so this is effectively going to be essentially bottoming out luck, as well as removing 20%, I believe it was, health from units nearby. And on top of that, it's doing poison, ticking 10% of their health every time it ticks. Then we've got Bloody Gag to inflict sleep and silence in there as well. Now the hit odds on this again are a bit of an unknown, but they're somewhere in the 60 to 80% ballpark. If you pick up 1 or 2 auto cards, you'll typically see this popping off all the time. And if you have the Stinky set, you can simply have her wade out to the front of the party and just keep dropping these debuffs left and right. Basically her passive DPS doing absolutely nothing is, well, the highest in the game. Nobody else does this. So you may notice several of these actually conflict with each other. You can't be asleep and poisoned at the same time. Essentially, poison will take over for sleep, but still, basically, if you're having both on there, you're getting rid of max health, you're bottoming out luck. If you happen to be using any units with multi-hit moves, especially, any summoners on your team, this effectively means that they're going to be critting constantly. In many cases, having a target cursed means that you'll be pretty likely to land crits even without needing things like a crit card. So, essentially, they are a massive setup tool here, and something that's really handy. Personally, the way that I was running them for the longest time was just kind of warp them forward, go ahead and give them haste, and then just kind of have them spam whatever. Drain Mind, for the purposes of getting some extra MP every now and then. Paralytic Wave is a nice little cheap debuff there. They're already doing pretty much all the other debuffs you'd want to be doing automatically, and then you just give them some kind of splash of some sort. Realistically, whatever you want them hitting with, doesn't really matter that much. They're already putting out insane numbers as it is. So they have the option to do summons through dark as well as doing splashes through dark. So typically, most folks will end up running them as dark. But if you want to feel a little bit extra spicy with it, you can essentially just leave them as kind of dark as their main summons there. They're going to be doing just fine. And then go and kind of go main element on something like a splash. Now, the reason they essentially want to do something like that, especially if you're running this finisher setup here. Main reason you'd want to do this is, well, mostly for the fact that you'd be getting more out of your big splash there. You would be taking a 30% penalty for those summons, but realistically, if something's already cursed, that 30% isn't going to be the difference between one-shotting something or not. So either way, just something to bear that in mind, because again, summon 2s especially are hitting 6 to 7 times, and this is just something that's, well, I mean, if something manages to survive those 6 to 7 hits, usually there's something else involved. It's resisted or something along those lines. If they die to it, realistically, they probably would have died to it whether you're specialized in it or not. Usually, like, that little window there isn't going to close because of that little difference. So personally, I always liked running them like this, but you do you. They also have access to Apocrypha as well. This can be a very powerful tool in their hands. And in fact, for Coda 4, I was also finding them pretty darn handy for spreading out debuffs, getting rid of a lot of healing items, especially on maps where there's a lot of healing. Stinky Set and Dark Priest, just kind of send them forward, hold everybody else back. They'll be able to melt everybody out of their healing items before ever getting close. So just a handy tool to have in your arsenal there. While basic splashes have a tendency to start having a hard time getting past defenses later on in the game, Apocrypha does not have that problem, especially Apocrypha 2, so, use that tool as you will. I personally was running Aeroflux 2 on Dark Priest on my main file there, simply put, because I accidentally got 5 copies of it. It took forever to get those dang talents. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on here. That's basically what the class consists of. They're a class entirely built around automatic stuff. If you don't want to have meditate on them, don't. Just go ahead and have them hit something with a book, generate a little bit of MP, or hit it with their hammer or what have you. Use their free casts off their Caldia. This combo seems dumb, but it's actually pretty solid. Okay, now let's go ahead and switch over to the other version to talk about the other classes. It feels good to be back to a controller with the D-pad in the right place. Okay, so let's go ahead and get to it here. So the Princess is going to be next on the list here. Technically, we probably should be covering Priest next, but whatever. Anyway, so the Princess is kind of her primary class. This is going to have twice the weapon options of the Dark Priest, with daggers, swords, axes, hammers, cudgels, and whips. Now, I want to point out that it's kind of funny that the Princess has access to daggers, but not the Dark Priest. That always felt like a little bit of an oversight for me, but that's always been just kind of a thing. I don't know why. They just refuse to let the Dark Priest have daggers. She uses it in a cutscene to kill somebody. How are you not going to have that weapon there? Anyway, so you might be wondering, what's the deal with the swords and the axes and things? Is this new for Reborn? Well, the funny part is, this is something that she actually could do back in PSP as well, but why the hell would you ever test this? If you had her as warrior or something, and bear in mind, I don't mean like at the beginning of the game. You had to have gotten Princess, switched her over to a melee class, trained her up in those skills, then switched her back to Princess, presumably after you went back in time to get more class marks, because you probably were screwing around with other stuff and, locked yourself out of the class temporarily. Anyway, so in her case, yeah, there's swords and axes that have additional spell casting options on there, which are really good in her hands. Additionally, hammers if you want to run those Caldia finishers, cudgels for obvious reasons, and personally, I feel like her strongest option is the whip, but I want to show off this real quick. So, one of the more versatile ways that you could build up the Princess here, actually, wait, I'm doing the thing where I hop into stuff instead of explaining their skills. So, Holy Water is something that all of her classes are going to have. It's just kind of her signature skill. She's got Recruit, Seraph's Pact, Absolution. She's got Insight, Petrify, and Charm, because what a shocker. Anyway, Lucky Star is going to increase luck by 20 to 25% for units within 2 tiles. This means that, essentially, while the Dark Priest is reducing everybody else's luck, she is boosting everybody's luck on your team. This can potentially be quite a bit more useful. Now, personally, while I prefer the Dark Priest in terms of this is hilarious, they're a walking war crime, objectively the Princess kind of does a lot of the same stuff better, being a total opposite of the other class. She's got her Meditate, because of course she does, has the Concentration and Engulf to have the full caster suite, and also has Princess's Whim, which will remove debuffs for units within 2 tiles. Now I want to point out that it's nice that this skill actually does something this time around, because it was pretty near worthless back on PSP with 30% chance to remove something. It just almost never landed. She's always talking herself up as soon as she's using it. Yeah, this was a joke move that's actually been made an actual good move this time around. Anyway, so let's talk weird expanded abilities on her. So she's got Apocrypha, just like her main casting variant. But personally, I feel like she's better off going for something other than Divine for her primary thing. I mean, you can just go full boring vanilla with it. Go, Heaven Judge, put some holy weapons on there and whatever else. I mean, there's nobody stopping you from doing that. You do you. But I feel like you get more out of doing something like this, where if you want to save your MP, you essentially want to kind of build up MP while attacking still. You have things like your Deadshot abilities off of wind weapons. You've got, if you want to use her as a resurrection specialist or what have you, you also have other, other spellcasting options as well. You can go Dark Princess as well with a Fafnir, get your Word of Pain on there. Essentially, there's a few different options here. If you want to improve her armor or swap out one of her other pieces of equipment, also she's able to use the Stinky Sword to replace one of these pieces of equipment. So, for example, say you wanted your Mage Mitts or something, then you would just go and swap out for the Stinky Sword here. Still retain the Stinky effect if you wanted to. Now, that's all well and good. Again, a lot of this stuff feels like it would have been way more useful over on the what's her face, the Dark Priest there. But anyway, let's go ahead and move on here. So, what we've got on the Princess is also one of the strongest possible things that you can have. Namely, you've got a combination of Meditate and Whips. Now, combine this with Lucky Star, Princess's Whim, we basically have a unit that's shaking off debuffs, is constantly landing crits, and has Armageddon combined with Meditate. So Meditate can almost fund an Armageddon by itself every round. So this takes 70 to use. This will give you up to 56. Now, the thing is, if you're going and applying all of this stuff as you should here, which personally I was really loving Stinky set with this, what we're looking at is essentially she can cap out at 115 luck. On top of this, you can potentially have a weapon with really high attack score, essentially attacking stuff and getting counterattacked, and then immediately following up the next round with an Armageddon. So the fun thing with Armageddon is that it isn't particularly resisted by anything, and it's tied for the highest attack bonus in the game for a physical attack there. So essentially, you can repeatedly use this to thoroughly one-shot stuff, especially if you go pick up a crit card, fizz-up cards, and what have you. This is a one-shot monster. It doesn't matter what your stats are. This is, again, the minimum stat kind of situation here. They were one-shotting Knight Commanders with this bullshit, so you can definitely go farther with this. Like, this is why I always say stop focusing on just the summons, because there's so much more potential for many of these other tools. Because again, Stinky set, she can't be targeted. You just send her forward at the start of the map and just watch stuff start dropping like flies. So either way, Whip plus Meditate, one of the most overpowered combos, no questions asked. It is fucked powerful. On top of that, she can give herself a boon of swiftness in the meantime. She can support heal. She can get the party back with an ease there, which at a range of 8 is going to be just fine without a range bonus. And if there happens to be a splash needed, she's got her Apocrypha 2 right here. Again, she's a very expensive, high maintenance class, but there's ways that you can get around this. If you wanted to go run her with some MP items, that works out just fine. But either way, if you are having trouble one-shotting a boss or something, just keep a Dynast King's Meat on there, set up with a Breach, and they are pretty much guaranteed to be dead. If you need to get somebody back on their feet for a little bit of support, you've got your Blessing Stones here, and then Glass Pumpkins. By this point in the game, you should have a decent pile of them. I usually pick 1 or 2 units to kind of be the one that gets to use the Glass Pumpkins, and in her case, basically, if we're talking Coda 4, I would typically set up with a Glass Pumpkin at the very start, and then Meditate would be enough to sustain that for probably the next 30 or so rounds. So, either way, really solid tool on that front. Again, Princess's Whim, if they get hit by a debuff, by a splash, by a counterattack, anything, that'll end up getting rid of that pretty well. She also can just sit nearby her allies and effectively use Ease for free. A combination of Ease and Princess's Whim allows for getting rid of, like, I think it's like up to 9 or 10 debuffs at the same time. So really handy to clear up the entire party. Again, really useful in Coda 4. This is part of the reason I was running Stinky set on her there, because essentially somebody would get hit by a Petrify or something like that, and she'd be there to automatically sort it out. Essentially, Haste synergizes well with Whim. Lucky Star synergizes well with pretty much everything here. I mean, this class is just great at this kind of stuff. So yeah, you can use her as a caster, that's all well and good, but you know, maybe the princess got a little bit kinky and got a bit powerful for it. So next, let's go ahead and talk about the priest. So the priest is her basic starting class. It's kind of just here because it is. There's really very little reason to be using the priest later on in the game, but let's go ahead and talk about it. Okay, so she comes in with hammers and cudgels, nothing too special there. Again, she is a modified cleric for all intents and purposes. Got her insight, got resist petrify, got resist charm, got her sanctuary, got Seraph's Pact, and then absolution for getting rid of condemn, holy water because it's her signature. She's got her meditate, she's got break curse. She doesn't get extend or anything along those lines. If she had extend, that would potentially allow for, you know, more. I would say that it probably would give more of a reason to use this. She's got an automatic break curse here. This is very rarely useful because this isn't even like a party curse break. This is literally just her. So when's the last time you saw her get cursed? Because the player is the only one that gets access to a cursed weapon. The only other source of curse is from the curse spell, which, again, is on your side. You've got some abilities that'll inflict curse, but they're pretty darn rare. It's weird that this is here. So the priest is one of those ones that's here, but a little bit half-finished, you know? Anyway, so, spell-wise, they get access to almost I believe actually it is literally, okay, they get all of the divine, except for Apocrypha, Summons, and Instills. So they get the area heals, they get the lasers and all of that. And they're going to be pretty competent with that stuff. Nothing too crazy fancy there. Again, this is just kind of a placeholder class of sorts. Not really anything that you probably would go out of your way to use in most situations, but at least she can make use of her cudgel skill. She is essentially a cleric that can make good use of that cudgel skill, and also, I suppose, with her high MP and insight, could allow for a unit that's really good at pulling off the resurrection trick. Weapon access is, again, nothing really to write home about here. We'll just go ahead and give her that just kind of for the hell of it. Just giving one last peek through the equipment here in case there's anything that sticks out, but I don't think there will be. It looks like pretty standard light armor loadouts for her, so yeah. Nothing too crazy special there, just kind of a modified priest. If you need holy water as an action skill, so just exorcism over there, and you want to have a slightly more offensive cleric, then there you go. Not really, again, the fanciest thing in the world, but it's fine. You can use it if you want to. That's mostly what it's there for. Okay, next up we are going to go ahead and downgrade Vice into his unique class here from a ninja, and talk about the Ranger. So, the Ranger is, as far as I'm concerned, the longbow guy that can use Steadfast. So this guy is kind of a interesting middle ground between the Fusilier, the Warrior, and the Archer of all things. Like his skills are kind of all over the dang place. So, all right, let's go ahead and get into this here. So he's not a spellcaster by any means. Weapon-wise, he's got access. Actually, let's just go ahead and. First of all, let's go ahead and give him the funny gun. There we go, give him his howitzer. And then we'll go ahead and swap him over to guns real quick, and then let's go ahead and go over his skills. So, he's got a lot of weapons. He's actually, I believe, tied with Warrior for highest weapon access in the game, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, no, I think Warrior gets maybe 2 more. Either way, he's got a lot of weapon access. So, mixing and matching these different categories is going to be pretty notable for kind of the kind of options that he gets a hold of. Bear in mind, his current health is after an absolute ton of charms. This guy is, or no, this was base stats. What am I talking about? Okay, he actually does have pretty decent health, and never mind. Ignore that. I'm mixing up which version I'm on because I see the Switch controllers in front of me. Alright, so we have fists, we have daggers, we have swords, we have axes, bows, crossbows, and fusils. Now, weird limitations on all of those. So fusils, he's limited to rifles. So if he had one-handed pistols, essentially one-handed pistol plus some of the other options might have given him a bit more flexibility, but he only gets access to the heavy versions. So anything in 2 hands. You know, do with that as you will. Now, given that he's a fairly frail unit, generally rifles are not his best thing here. I mean, really, you shouldn't be using rifles unless it's on the Fusilier. They're just very, very slow to fire, so again, it's here as an option. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a very good option, but let's go ahead and move on here. He's got access to Constitution, Insight, Pincer Attack 2, I'm surprised this wasn't actually at least like a 3 or something. He's got Steadfast, Double Attack, Resist, Charm, and Petrify, which are a bit lower than they usually would seem to be. Lobber, as well as Recruit, which is a nice little callback to the story there. First Aid, however, his version of First Aid only gets rid of Stop. It doesn't do anything else. And Back Attack. So this version of First Aid is rarely useful. There's... trying to think where the hell it was that there was a Mass Stop. There's some boss that had Mass Stop, but it's very rarely useful. Like Denim's version has Regeneration, his version just gets rid of Stop. It's very specific, it's not something you'll see come up that often. If you have bosses or just several units running daggers and you keep getting Shadowbound or something, maybe that would be useful. I guess he's just good at knife fighting or something, who knows. Anyway, you can have some long-range punchy options through something like the Vinatea, or not even the Vinateas, but just through fists here. The Howling Rage is just a really good long-range punch. Something like the Talons would allow him to essentially serve as a potential caster as well, although his actual casting stats are absolute bottom of the barrel, so it's probably not worth going down that route. Daggers are pretty solid in his hands. He's got Double Attack, so if you're running Double Attack, just run daggers. You'll get enough bonuses that it's not worth taking the weight and use penalty of a lot of the other weapons. Axe and Sword I've run on him a few times. They've got a nice little... Axe and Sword and Axe and Dagger have some nice little crossover between their respective skill sets. But again, it's kind of weird there. Like, there's a lot of little combos that you can put together with this stuff, but pretty much every way that you look at it, there's going to be something weird about it. Because he doesn't really have any defensive play outside of Steadfast. He's a unit that's all offense, but, like, not enough offense to be a gigantic threat, but either way. His dexterity is his real, like, main claim to fame, so anything that can scale well off his dexterity is pretty good, which is why in most cases folks will go and turn him into something like the Jiggler Sniper, or, you know, any flavor of long-range archer or what have you. So, like, let's say we wanted to turn him into a Dragoon type situation, and we'll go ahead and see if we have some Dragon equipment available. Give him his Worm Scale, we probably have some Spark Guards laying around somewhere. Can he use those? Yeah, okay, who's got some of those? Apparently everyone but him. Okay, so let's go get some from Goose. That one's easy to find. I lost my Angel Knight. There we go. You're right here. Need to borrow this. Actually, let's borrow this to see if he can equip it. And go back to him. And... he can't equip that helmet anyway. I thought so, but worth double checking. So, let's say we have something like this. We have Dragon Slayer on him, we have a anti-dragon bow over here, and potentially, you know, switch him over to a water element to get a little bit more punch out of that. So, in his case, he would essentially be able to be a anti-dragon sniper with Steadfast. Is this necessarily that useful in every situation? Not really, but still, it works. On top of that, you can also go ahead and set him up with some, here, well, the archer one's going to be for crossbows. Who's got the star? Well, you know what, forget it. Pretend the archer one's going to be for bows, right? So you can potentially go and give yourself a max lobber proficiency by going and maxing out their weapon rank. So, essentially, yeah, they've got options. They're weird and unusual options. Like, basically, he's a high-health archer, right? So he's got his longbows, he's got his potential racial options he can take advantage of. He's not getting killed by counterfire, you know, on account of having Steadfast, and he can work in a lobber to be able to go explode some stuff. He's a unit that can be tailor-suited to kill specific things. So if that's what you're looking for, he's fun to play around with. Yeah, his description says a wandering warrior adept in the use of a wide range of martial skills, particularly good at taking out specific targets. Rangers perform well in a manner of situations, and that's exactly it. He's basically a hitman. So he has the tools to be able to specifically go and try to overpower one target. Anything beyond that, and he's fucked. But still, it's something. You know, he's trying. He's trying. He's not a great unit by any means, and it's one of the trickier classes to use. But this is, you know what, he can make it work. So either way, he tends to get dunked on a decent bit in terms of his overall usefulness. He's not, like, egregiously terrible or whatever, it's just he's, again, very, very specifically suited for his one particular goal there, right? So we'll go ahead and replace that dragon equipment here to go give him something like the... do we go Sriracha? Do we go Thunderbow? I mean, elemental one-hander bows are also really solid in his hands, so that's also probably something to consider here. Like, let's say we wanted to... actually, there's a fun little... Nah, this would be kind of a waste to use the Lombardi on him like this. Nah. Let's go ahead and give him something else. We got fire. I mean, do we have any ice crossover that we could use here? Because there is a wind one-hander bow, so let's say something like this. Do we have the wind one-hander? Where is that? Who's got the Garuda right now? The Tomato? Where's Tomato at? Not you. Why do the hawk people always look the same? It's hard to figure out who's who. Alright, which one of you is Tomato? There you go, Tomato. Need to borrow your bow for a second so that we can give this guy a job. Alright, so there we go. We set him up for wind. We go ahead and swap all of his stuff out here. And, you know, that's decent. Essentially, swapping out for something like this gives him a solid amount of options here. He would be able to have ice finishers as well as some debuffs off the axe. He would be able to have the other finishers here off the bow. He's got the lobber. He's got the steadfast. Like, this is the kind of weird build that he makes work. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be a two-weapon build, but essentially stacking up finishers and just using weird multiple attack options, that's his shtick. He's got no defensive play whatsoever outside of steadfast. So, either way, there we go. That's the Ranger for you. And next, we talk about the most overpowered unit by design in the game, and that would be the Lord. So the Lord can use any skills from just about every class that he runs into. As soon as you change him into a class, he now understands those skills. So, for example, he was a Lich at some point, which would mean that he has Reflection. So, actually, let's set up something funny right here. So, I was going to make this its own video, but screw it, this is just kind of a funny build. So this is what I like to call the Shining Armor Lord build, right? So we've got Phalanx over here, we've got Conserve MP, we can go ahead and leave that there. We have, we're going to go ahead and put some First Aid on there, and then we're also going to put on Reflection. So where's Reflection at? So that's right over here, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and leave his... actually, we don't even need the space and time. What we need is a breach. So he is going to look for an option to breach a target. This is an item that very rarely gets used, so I'm trying to remember what it even is. What is the breach item? Is it this thing? Or not breach, enfeeble. There we go. So, he goes ahead and gets an enfeeble item. Now, why would he bother carrying an enfeeble item and a dodge item, and what is this? So, here's the funny little shtick when it comes to the Lord. So, when it comes to Reflection, he can actually take advantage of he can take advantage of a lot of very funny things on account of the fact that he can combine everything. But, on a funny little note, whenever Reflection is reflecting, it's basically attacking after the defense lowering stuff, but before the defense increasing stuff. So, like, for example, if you wanted to very passively complete Code of 4, one thing that you can actually do is put on Reflection, put on Phalanx, and then put on First Aid. Now, what this creates... Oh, as well as enfeebling yourself. So what this creates is a situation where they will be targeted by casters all the time. Now, the funny part is, they will be treated as if they are, you know, getting that damage bonus from Enfeeble, and this is especially funny if the enemy unit can crit. So essentially you can Enfeeble and Curse yourself, right? So if you do this, you now have a case where essentially the curse and the enfeeble and everything else will be added to the calculation. But if it hits you, your Phalanx doesn't care. 90% reduction is 90% reduction. It's still basically nothing. However, if it hits the other guy, they're suddenly hitting themselves for like 20 times more than they would hit you. Meanwhile, you're over here with your First Aid, like, I don't know what that stiff breeze was, but I'm just going to recover out of that if you don't mind. And then meantime, you can just use Conserve MP to cast whatever spell you'd like in the game for free. Double this up with Renewal, and basically this guy just kills anything that's got a mind on its shoulders. Now, this again... is a class that can take advantage of basically everything, with few exceptions. For example, he can't use fusils. I guess he's just kind of scared of that one ending. And he can't use instruments. Dude's got no tune. But either way, he can use almost all equipment. His equipment limitations seem kind of weird, but he's basically locked into heavy armor type setups. In the PSP version, this was largely because too many augment stacks would cause the game to break. Apparently, in this case, he's just very into particular pieces of equipment. In this case, most of these things are already equipped, but for example, he can't equip the snipe set, but he would be able to equip the fire gauntlets, stuff like that. His limitations are very weird and random, but he does get access to almost every piece of equipment in the entire game, which means that you can combine just about anything that you can think of. And this also means that potentially he's got some of the craziest options when it comes to combining any weapons whatsoever, though surprisingly it's still only the songstress that gets access to the hammer instrument combo to be able to hit every element at once. He still technically wouldn't be able to do that, but you can take advantage of a lot of funny things. Like, let's say you wanted to take advantage of the fact that if we go over here, there's many skills that specifically only apply to katanas here. So we take our double impact, and then we also go ahead and combine that with, let's say, where we got some of these other ones. So we got a mighty strike over here. It increases attack score by 25%. So now we've got the double, we've got the plus 25%. Specifically just for katanas here. This is originally for two-handed katanas, but technically this counts as a katana here. We then combine that with a Lament of the Dead, and then we go ahead and combine that with, let's say, a Sanguine Assault. So now we've got plus 25% attack, plus 50% strength, or we can just go ahead and make this a little bit more fluid by applying a Berserk instead, so that we only have one skill that needs to be applied here. So rather than going for the standard, for some reason the like dual wield Lord build is kind of put on there a lot of the time, but at the same time you can just use double attack to basically take far less recovery time, since remember, if you're using double attack you are paying for the recovery time of each weapon, so you're still taking one skill slot one way or another, but in this case, instead of, for example, if I had two of these, I'd be paying 25 per attack. Instead it would be 18 to set it up, and then just the attack would happen twice. So it would be 25 plus 18 instead of 25 plus 25. This can get especially intense with some of the heavier weapons, like for example if you're running dual axes and you're going in, well, effectively doubling your recovery time with plus 35 per swing. Or what else do we got here? Or if you... I wonder what the heaviest one-hander is. Currently that's let's see, 36. What about some of these swords? 40. Okay, 40 for the Briny 2. So yeah, you potentially instead would be paying 18 instead of 40. Which, yeah, you can actually get to Relic Brynhilders, so that would be possible. I was about to say you can't do that, but you totally can. You can get access to the Stinky set through whatever means you'd like, though realistically, he is able to equip every defensive skill in the game, so there's really no reason you'd ever need the Stinky set on him. Additionally, he can be the greatest support unit, bar none, in the entire experience here. So, this is a build that I was showing off a whole lot before, but due to Conserve MP, he casts for free, or you can do Conserve and essentially Conserve and Salvation or something. Like, this kind of stuff can be pretty darn funny. He's casting for free, and whatever MP he does generate, he can just give to the party. He theoretically could also just go and... where was it here? You can put Meditate on top of this. Actually, probably put Salvation over here. And so now he's basically an unkillable battery that casts for free, gives everyone infinite MP or what have you. He's actually one of the best use cases for something like Resurrection 2, because again, this is going to be a very expensive skill at a cost of 200 MP, and Conserve MP makes it free. And again, you know, Meditate, Salvation, all of that kind of thing. Due to the fact that he's actually got more than likely got a relatively small mana pool, this actually ends up benefiting him quite a decent bit here, because he'll actually trigger the kind of sharing effect of Salvation more often. Anyway, so he's got access to Draconics, I believe pretty much all of them. Which, by the way, something funny that was, is that right? Maybe not. Okay. Anyway, what was I getting at here? So, as far as As far as Draconics go, something like Gift of Renewal I would say is pretty solid. I don't have the shielding ones on this save file, but you do have like Nullify Strike, Nullify Spell, all that kind of thing. Those would be handy on them, I guess. I would kind of keep a Warlock around in the background if you want to use those, but Renewal is so universally handy, especially next to Phalanx and stuff like that, that it's definitely worth keeping on hand. Anyway, I was getting on this support build earlier, so this essentially would be as simple as going and putting Extend on top of Conserve MP on top of Conserve RT. And what this creates is a guy that basically can't die. If he ever gets attacked, it's honestly somebody else's problem. He can use an Engulf here in combination with a Resurrection, in combination with a Staff, to give a long-range free instant turn to anybody that needs it. That's why I had him set up like this before. So he's functionally unkillable, and he can instantly revive any units on your team. So you can more or less get infinite amounts of people on the field. You can play way more risky. If you just want to blaze through the late game and don't want to do the boring AI thing, just set your Lord up like this. All they got to do is sit in place and just get everybody back up on their feet. He's basically cheating at this point. So Gift of Renewal, Resurrection 2, if he feels, plucky, he might go for a Thunderburst, though in most cases I typically just kept a basic Starfall to have a long-range Exorcism, though in this case he's got the Exorcism Staff, so might as well just use that instead. Anyway, so this is a unit that is by far the most flexible thing in the game. He's got a lot of very funny quirks about him, and just about everything will give you some kind of funny return for it. For example, this was another build that I really liked playing around with. And that was the spear guy. So there's a lot of weapons with a lot of very specific effects on there. So specifically, something like the Scorpion will inflict poison. Now, sure, the Dragon Fang can do this as well, but you can combine Berserk to cause the spear to hit in a sweep. You can use Preempt to basically attack twice with the spear without paying the extra cost. Preempt does give you a free attack, Lament of the Dead, in order to basically take its beginning of the game weapon damage and actually make it function. Evade just to nullify finishers and things like that. Or potentially just put a Speed Star on there for good measure, just to make this all function a bit more often. If you wanted to have like a sort of a Red Viper build over here, or whatever the hell his name was. Again, world's your oyster with all this stuff. You can mix and match basically everything. So he's entirely just a custom created class. So whatever that tells you is what it tells you. If you wanted to have a pincer attack on this nonsense and you wanted the Berserk pincer, sure, he gets the Berserk pincer. Something to note is that whenever there's a skill that's ranked up, he has to see that skill in its current rank to unlock it here. So for example, if he, let's say, was level 20 or something, or 25 or whatever, and he switched over to a Terror Knight, and then he never saw a Terror Knight again, this Lament would still be at rank 2 or so. So I believe there might still be a couple of skills on there that I haven't switched over. Normally what I would recommend is wait until like level 50 or so, go back, and then just switch in between every single class and get all of their skills. He can get transformation skills from the Lich. He can't get the Angel Knight skills. He's got most of the stuff that you can get from other unique classes, including Buccaneer for Evade and Speed Star. Here, let's go ahead and cover what he can actually get here. Again, he can basically get everything. I haven't gotten Necromancer on him yet because I haven't done Cresta on the save file. I don't think I care, because I'm never going to use them for undead support. Basically, you'd only use that to get undead support, your re-raise undead and what have you. He doesn't get access to necromancies as this class, and I don't believe he'd get that access by switching over to this one either. It would be kind of neat if he did, but I don't think he does. His spell access doesn't change. His spell access is just about universal. He's got the Apocryphas, he's got the Draconics. I think I mentioned this already. He doesn't get dances, he doesn't get songs. Again, dude's got no rhythm. He refuses to be a ninja, and he doesn't get necromancy. But unlike the PSP version, he is not locked into just being a good Boy Scout. So The annoying part in PSP is that he was primarily incentivized, while he did have access to a lot of things, he was primarily incentivized to pretty much always end up running, well, I say incentivized, more like cursed to always run divine equipment. Just his divine options were more open than anything else, whereas this time around it's more open, you get more options, you can run him whatever stupid way you will without any issues along the way. So, you know, do whatever kind of messed up build you like, and I'm sure it'll work somehow. Hell, he's the only guy that's able to actually go dual wield anatomy books if you want that. So, if you want to have a book dual wield build, it's still technically functional here. It's not a good build by any means, but actually I never did try what happens if you try to combine double impact and dual wield. Probably something funny. Anyway. So, that is how Lord do. That's what this class is all about. A couple of other notes. If you're looking to get more class marks for their particular classes, I doubt anyone's going to be too concerned about getting a Vice's class remade, but if you really need that for some reason, I believe you actually get that on several story fights. I know that I've never really run out of them, but you can just go and redo his recruitment thing and pick up multiple of them at the same time. Same thing applies for Denim and Kashwa, that if you want more of the Lord and Princess, all you have to do is go to what was I going to say? Go to their recruitment scene and just replay that over and over, and you'll keep getting more of them. So, for example, that's why I've got 65 of his class marks. You can do the same thing for the Princess there, and again, you know, same thing for the Ranger. Just to note this though, you don't have to like do the entire getting them killed section. You can reload the section right after the castle and then redo it from there. If you decide to go for the opposite one, then you would have to redo the castle to get the scene to be different. If you want to lock into that decision to make sure that you can reset them more and more, you have to make it to the next warp point. So either way, that's a decision that you can swap out multiple times there. I was meaning to switch the guy over to Phalanx because I wanted him to survive a little bit more because I want to test out this stupid build idea. Actually, let's just give him Berserk instead. That would be funny. Let's go ahead and give him the Crest of Fire because, again, it just would be funny. Let's go ahead and give him probably for the Seraph because I'm just going to immediately not keep the save file. Alright, let's go ahead and see how he does with 2 books. This was a build that you technically could get some decent results out of back in PSP, but you mostly did it for the funnies, you know? Kind of a why not situation. And really anything with the Lord, like no matter what you do, he's gonna be really good. Just yeah. You can do stupid stuff with it. That's what makes it amusing. And any old stupid thing will work. You will get some funny interactions, like I mentioned earlier, with like Spear and Berserk. You can make that happen, but if you've got, like, let's say, double attack on a Berserker, or double impact, what have you, on a Berserk Spear, essentially the first attack would be in a sweep, the second attack would be a regular Spear stab. That actually does have its utilities for Code of 4 in certain situations. So just also something to bear in mind. Again, the mixing and matching nature of all that stuff does give you a lot of potential for mixing and matching strange things. Now, I would say in general, don't rely on the unit too much in terms of being a powerhouse. There's a lot of units that can be powerhouses. Basically, anyone can be a powerhouse. And just simply kind of trying to use him as a main primary source of offense is just going to leave you disappointed, just because it would take a really long time for him to be truly, like, completely overpowered. But what I would recommend is using him as a support. He's got access to every support ability in the game. You might as well take advantage of that, you know? So yeah, I just want to see if double attack plus double impact will attack 4 times. This is probably too stupid to work, but I just want to try if it'll work. So yeah, would definitely recommend using them as more of a support. I know myself and many others have liked using him as a kind of archer support there as well. You can do staff plus elemental shortbow. Again, solid results, surprisingly. What that'll give you is essentially a long-range sniper with the ability to heal, exercise, what have you, resurrect. So he keeps the long-range casting while also keeping the long-range sniping. So if you see an opening for a good ranged attack, he's right there to take advantage of it, especially if you happen to be running Lament of the Dead on him. He might be able to create his own openings. So either way, it's, you know, it's fun times. Alright, so, bonk, bonk, bonk. Oh, man. Okay, so it's still just a regular double attack there, but Berserk plus double attack is just really funny. Anyway, so that'll be about that. Y'all have yourselves a good one. I will see you in the next one. And I should probably point out yet again, those kinds of numbers, this guy has not had his stats boosted in any way. Like, he might have picked up a stack card or two along the way, but this guy has not been eating charms or anything. This is the lowest stats he can get at this point in the game. So, oh hey, we even got a Lament on there. Let's see how that works out. Oh, that's just fun. But yeah, it's a shame that he doesn't get the double-double. Anyway, alright, I will see you guys next time. Take care, and thank you for stopping by. Later.